Today's businesses are on a vigilant watch for threats in an ongoing cyber war. It's time to get real-world solutions to protect and secure your valuable business information anytime, anywhere. Welcome to Cybersecurity America with Josh Nicholson.
So this episode is something that's near and dear to my heart. It's the top 10 tips in the job market and how to adapt. One of the things that we all understand nowadays that the job market is a little uncertain, that you need to ensure that your skills are up to date. There's also a process for how you go about looking for that next opportunity. How do you build your brand? How do you do a number of those different things? I thought it would be a fascinating show to talk about that and to talk about what are some of those tips that people are doing. I know some things I did, but I wanted to talk to one of the big recruiters of the area here. I wanted to touch and dive in. Now, today I'm joined by Blake Williams. Now, Blake is a founder and he's a headhunter at Hyperdrive Recruiting. Now, he's delivering revenue generators for the business, and he writes resumes that double his interviews through the hrprove.com website. Now, he's got over 13 years of experience recruiting and sales and marketing, product engineering, and cybersecurity talent. And so I wanted to bring him to the show and be able to give us some guidelines on what is out there, how best to adapt, and so forth. Blake, welcome to the show. Now, did I miss anything about your background? What did I miss?
You nailed it, man. Good job. Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for the invite.
Awesome. And first thing, just a couple of things we're seeing in the news, just from a threat intelligence perspective. Some of you have heard of that AI platform, DeepSeek. It's been in the news lately at this Chinese AI model that's supposed to be hyper accurate and surprising a lot of people. Some people said it was like the Sputnik moment of AI. I don't know about all that, but I do know there's been a lot of reporting of it being down, several different attacks coming from IP addresses originating in the United States. I think there's also a lot of researchers. There's some research out there that's saying that this popular generative AI model allows for hallucinations. It can easily avoid guardrails. It's susceptible to jailbreaking and malware creation requests. And it's more at critical rates, high rates of errors are being found. We're also seeing in the news higher education being targeted right now as they work to hijack Microsoft logons. We're seeing this in higher ed. They'll even compromise one O365 environment within one higher education institute and use that as a staging ground against another, because they obviously communicate, so it's easier to have that kind of trust model. So we're seeing a lot of that. Really want to concentrate in ensuring that you have MFA enabled on all accounts, and then critical accounts actually have step-up authentication. We're also seeing a lot of ransomware right now that has not died off. Ransomware has continued to go on rampant. Organizations are still getting hit by this. We're seeing kind of a mix. We're seeing some organizations have been hit in the past, have adapted, and they're not as bad. They're able to recover. Then we're seeing some that are hit for the first time, and it's still very basic rules are being negated. So not having admin rights on all the desktops, not using something like Laps, not logging down Azure, they're still coming, and you're seeing those. Some news as well. SolarWinds was taken private. That was news this week for $4.4 billion over to River Capital. Now, if y'all remember, started off pretty much the largest supply chain attack in U.S. history. This is when the Russians were able to utilize that system in their updates. We were able to compromise the updating patches of it, and were able to distribute malware in their customers' environments. We're also seeing just a huge attack on Fortinet. Fortinet warned just the other day that attackers are exploiting another now patched zero-day bug. It's in Fort OS and Fort Proxy, and it's used to hijack Fortinet firewalls and then breach enterprise networks. Now, successful exploitation of this authentication bypass, you can look up more details. It's on CVE 2025-24472. And this allows remote attackers to gain super admin privileges by making maliciously crafted SF proxy requests. Now, you can go on there to see whether you are vulnerable and what are some of the steps to do, but essentially they were using that zero-day vulnerability, wreaking havoc on several organizations. Now, according to Fortinet, the attackers exploited two vulnerabilities to generate random admin or local users on these affected devices. So it goes back to ensuring you have proper understanding of the management and administration of your devices. And then adding them to a new and existing SSL VPN users group. They've also been modifying firewall policies and other configurations and accessing SSL VPN instances with previously established rogue accounts. Allows them to do a tunnel to the internal network. Now, while Fortinet didn't provide additional information on campaigns, this has been noted lately. There's several organizations out there have IOCs related to it. And if you have a Fortinet firewall, you definitely want to be ensuring its configuration and that all the software is up to date. Also, I have some great news for the podcast here. So on the YouTube show, we have hit 300 subscribers. So really appreciate everybody hitting that subscribe and hitting that and sharing it out on your social media platforms. Just a really great accomplishment, and we're going to hopefully have more content as we move forward. So Blake, really great to have you on the show. And I think we wanted to start off, what are you seeing right now in the market? You and I talked a couple of times before, but what are you seeing in the market from a jobs perspective in cybersecurity and potentially in IT? And what's some of your advice as we go into 2025?
Yeah, it's still a tough year in IT in general and in cybersecurity. All white-collar workers. We're definitely still in a white-collar recession, as they're calling it, but some of the stats they're just tough. You got to be patient in this market, and you got to go above and beyond to actually land an interview. You can't just rely on fixing one version of your resume and applying to jobs. You're going to go in the resume black hole. Some of the stats that were coming out they're rough. I think you have to apply on average to just under 300 jobs to actually land a job. And there's about a 99.7% failure rate whenever you just apply. There's a lot you have to do to overcome that. So, yeah, I'm excited to dive into some of that with you today. I was looking at the NC Tech jobs report just this morning, and there was an uptick in January for the number of IT jobs in North Carolina is what they look at. But this is a good indicator. This is a good hub of tech jobs over the country, I believe. But although it was an uptick, it's still very low compared to what we saw pre-COVID and after COVID. And every single category of IT jobs saw an increase of job postings with the exception of UI, UX design. And I think we know the culprit there, most likely starts with an A, ends with an I. There's a lot of folks in that community that are saying that, hey, companies like to put us in the bucket of simply visual designers, but UX includes much more than that. It's hard to get a company's corporate office to agree with that. They're going to face some headwinds in that particular skill set, but otherwise we're seeing a comeback, and I'm very optimistic.
No, it's great to hear that. I think there's a different ways to approach things as well. One of the things I started reading was, how do you do SEO with LinkedIn? How do I make my brand better? Does it make sense to fill out all the categories on LinkedIn? What are recruiters really doing all day? Are you really mining LinkedIn all day and doing Google's? So you're trying to put your mind into the space of the recruiter and see just how are they looking at things? So would you, if I was just starting off in the beginning, should I focus on my resume first? Should it be, I get professional guideline design on my LinkedIn? Should it be my interviewing skills? Or it should be all of these? You should take an inventory of kind of your skill sets. But you could see somebody sitting back going, all right, the job market's tough. How do I differentiate myself? What do I need to have on LinkedIn? What shouldn't I say? What are some of the biggest turnoffs from a recruiter hears X in that first 15 minutes? And that's it. You don't move on to the next round. What are your thoughts on some of those?
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. I would definitely start with the LinkedIn profile. I think LinkedIn presence is paramount. Having a full profile completely filled out. And then once you have a full LinkedIn profile, you can actually download that. You can download your profile as a PDF document, or they used to have a resume builder feature. I'm not sure if they still have that, but you can download that and then cut and paste some of the content into a resume. And then, so number 2 is getting your resume dialed in. You definitely don't want to rely on a single version of your resume. You want to tailor it for each job that you apply to. A lot of job seekers don't realize they're There's a lot of complaints about the ATS, right? The applicant tracking system is going to screen you out. And there's some instances of that. Some are more capable than others, but oftentimes candidates are eliminated in the grid view. And the grid view is a screen where you go into the applicant tracking system. You're looking at all the applicants. A lot of time there are several hundred applicants. So each recruiter is looking for a way to trim down that list and get the top 20 candidates as fast as they possibly can. So they're looking at three main columns, which is the job title match, the industry match, and the location match, because a lot of companies are returning to office. So even if the job says it's remote, oftentimes there is a location limitation. You have to be in the same time zone or the same state or within an hour of the office or something like that. So people are getting eliminated. I think 70 to 80% of candidates are eliminated in the grid view because of one of those items, and the remaining 20% are viewed. And that's when you have to actually think about what your resume says when they open it, because you only get, it's around 5 seconds, right? Looking at, okay, what's your skill set? Where are you? You should put those things at the top of your resume, like right below your name. Tailor your resume so that job title matches the role that you applied to, because there's so many titles, especially in cybersecurity. So many variations of titles. It can't just be cybersecurity engineer. If you don't feel, if it doesn't feel strange, if it doesn't feel like you're lying, to adjust the title a little bit just to match the role that you're applying to, that'll definitely help your chances. If you don't feel comfortable adjusting your job title to match that role, that's a good sign that you probably shouldn't even apply, because it's not your skill set. But in terms of interviewing, there's so many things to get right there. We can do a whole podcast on that. If you do want to practice your interviews, I would suggest recording yourself over video. Interview yourself and do mock interviews with yourself. If you don't like the way your answer sounds, then do it again and change your script and get to the point where it's something that you're at least mildly okay with. And oftentimes candidates forget that they talk too much. They talk themselves out of a job. You really should not speak for more than a minute or two without checking in on your audience, because they may want to take the conversation in a different direction. You could wind up rambling. You could wind up saying something that's going to be a turnoff. If you can smile, stay positive, don't say anything negative, try to reframe some of the technologies that you may not have experience with, reframe that into a positive thing, and try not to talk too much, then that's going to help you out.
I picked up a couple of those keywords with don't talk too much. You said that a number of different times. I do think when someone's nervous, because I've interviewed hundreds of people, they tend to keep talking. And I think it's going to be clear that they may have a set of questions they need to get through. What you want to do is get through them and hit them, and positively hit them before having time afterward to have the banter. The thinking is, okay, so I know they're going to ask about, get these through these four. The thinking is have a clear, crisp response for that particular question, and then ask if there's anything clarifying, and then wait. Is that kind of what you think? Is hit it, maybe spend a minute on it, make sure you covered the points, ask if there was any, does that make sense, and then move on to the next, and give yourself, a minute, maybe minute and a half in that area, but hit it and forget it type attitude. Is that it?
Exactly. Yeah. Check in with the audience. Did I answer your question? And my personal favorite, it's a Jedi mind trick. End your answer by saying, and that's why I thought I was a good fit for this job in this company.
That's a good point. That's a good point. I think one of the things I noticed from interviewing is that when we have a candidate that knows the job description, but also knows the company, and it has some really good qualifying questions on how the role will expand and map to the strategy that you had in your 10K or whatever. I've had people read the 10K of the company I was with. That was really just impressive. And then I've had people that didn't really understand what company they were applying to and the name of the company that they were interviewing for. It was just really weird to see. But I thought the person that was prepared to understand your business, understand the role, and I think understanding the role in order to accomplish it to the best of your ability, not to understand how it would be some personal growth for you. Like, I'm really looking to do this. And I think people make it complicated when they talk about all the things you want to do and how you want to do this with your career and do all that. And to a manager, I don't even know how to satisfy half of that. How would I, does that make sense? It's difficult to, I just take the approach that I want to come in as a humbled warrior. I'm there for the team. I want to win. I'm somebody to get along with everybody else. I'm not somebody that has some big career demand that you're going to have to mentor me and I should be promoted in 6 months. Does that make sense? How do you relate that to an interviewer that, I'm trying to express that emotion.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it's tough, especially if you get excited, you want to promote yourself, and that's okay. You just can't forget, though, that the company doesn't really care what you're interested in, what you can learn, this and that. They're interested in what you can do on day one. Oftentimes, forget what you're interested in. What do they need? So to figure that out, you have to ask a lot of questions. I always recommend folks to put on their consultant hat in these interviews. Another Jedi mind trick is go into the interview thinking that you already have 2 other offers. So you remove all that pressure, and now you're taking the approach of, I already have 2 other offers. Let me go in and see what this company's all about. That frees you up to just be curious, right? Ask just as many questions as they ask you, and that puts you in more of a position of power. But now the market is so competitive that companies are not going to settle for a nice to have candidate. They're going to settle for the must have candidate, right? And you may be a vitamin to their problem, right? If you're not healthy and you're deficient in certain area, a vitamin will help. But oftentimes the pain reliever is going to be the fastest hire, who is going to resolve the immediate pain that the company has right now, not somebody who can learn and get up to speed 3 months from now if they take vitamins.
Yeah, that's a good point. I wanted to ask you a few questions on like education. I used to tell people that, yeah, I got my bachelor's degree and it's mostly A, because I like to learn, and B, I didn't want to be excluded from a job offer because of a piece of paper. But we're seeing that there's a lot of job descriptions out there that say you must have a bachelor's degree, but they really don't mean it. They're just like weeding out a group of people that says, hey, if you're generally uneducated, don't apply. I see so many people that have all the qualifications for that role, but they don't have the degree and they don't apply. Because it's like this principle, if I don't match everything that's in that job description, I don't even attempt to apply to it. And I was telling them, I wouldn't do that at all. I would map the majority of it seems to match your skill set. Tell them that. Don't talk yourself out of a potential great hire because somebody used some template on the internet that said some word and you don't think you qualify, because if they really wanted that, why else would they write that? How critical is it on those pieces for those job descriptions?
Yeah, job descriptions, most of them are either cut and paste from an old description that a company used a year ago, and or AI generated the job description. So I would take all those little items with a grain of salt. None of them are going to be knockout questions. If you don't have one tool, but you have another tool that basically does the same thing, you understand the concepts of what that tool is used for. So I wouldn't see that as a deal breaker. And also, if you don't have a degree, very few companies nowadays do I ever run into where it's a must-have that you need a bachelor's degree. I think companies have parted ways with that idea in this market. It's more about the skills that you have, the professional skills. Just having the degree is not really going to do much for you.
Yeah. I see where the executives ranks, having a degree is a must-have. Everybody has degrees and master's degrees in executive ranks. But in the tech engineering ranks, you used to have them as well. Now you don't. The certifications have become much more popular. They're a lot more effective. I did my degree in 10 years. Imagine how much the technology at night school, because I got out of the Marine Corps. But imagine how much technology changed in 10 years as you're getting your bachelor's degree, because I could only do it. But you could see where the certifications keep up with the newest technology right out of the gate. I love the fact that my Java professor was adjunct, and he did Java programming during the day. So it was just a very enriching experience from that perspective. But I see a lot of people that would have great skills for a certain role, especially when you talk about audit roles. Like they say, Josh, I'd love to be in cybersecurity, but man, I'm terrible in math and I can't program. They have this vision that cybersecurity is all math and programming. It sounds horrible when you think of it that way. It's not. There's all these different aspects of it. And I think there's a lot of candidates who would be great in audit and governance and risk and compliance, for instance. They don't apply for it. They think it's too complicated. So I always ask them to look at your skills that you have and how do you update them. For instance, if you're looking for a job, you go through LinkedIn. LinkedIn has this premium version where you get a lot of training. So in my realm in cybersecurity, you can take a lot of training, get certifications, and it shows up as a badge on your LinkedIn page. How important is that? If you, as a recruiter, would see somebody's LinkedIn page and you see these certifications and or at least this continuing training in advanced technologies. So say it is cloud. You're interviewing for somebody cloud, doesn't have much experience, but they have a ton of the training courses on their LinkedIn. Would you consider giving them a call?
I would. Yeah. It's not going to be the secret sauce. It's going to give you a slight edge in a competitive situation. Certifications alone are going to be like the game changer that some folks think that they are going to be. But if there's two candidates that they're looking at for a particular role, there's a top two, and one has all these certifications, the other doesn't, I would argue that gives the candidate with certifications an edge.
Yeah, no, I would think so. At the same time, I think there's a lot of these trick questions. I'm curious how you answer some of these questions.
Okay.
Tell me, what are you the worst at? Tell me what is the area you can improve on. Tell me the time you messed up and learned from it. These negative experiences, we have to turn them around and say how you positively learned something. Or the biggest, most difficult one is tell me about yourself. I think if most of the candidates could just tell me about yourself, I don't want to know what kindergarten you went to, but I do want to see how some personality of what your life, some kind of hinge of who you are as a person before dumping into what you do professionally. What are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, the elevator pitch. We talk about that a lot. The best ones are 30 seconds, and you don't go all the way back to your childhood or anything like that, and you don't ramble on. It's just, yeah, whatever your title is, I've got 7 years of experience. I've worked in this industry, this other industry, strong in these tools, and what I'm known for are these three things. And I was interested in your company.
I think that's a perfect elevator pitch. Absolutely. That's what I think people need to practice the most, because I've gone through some training exercises with my nephews and so forth. When you ask somebody that and they come up off the fly, it's just a lot of ums and just not handled it right. And so I would think you would want to go over your elevator pitch and then go over your elevator pitch and then go over your elevator pitch and then go over your elevator pitch until it becomes natural. Because what happens is, if it's like we were talking before, if it's not natural, your brain has to go into compute mode, and that's when they're going, and you're trying to give your brain time to think about what's the next words. But if you already are trained with those next words, it flows, it feels natural, and there's a professionalism that says he or she knows their stuff so well, they're able to just rattle it off. And so it shows expertise rather than someone's not making it out and BSing me. Because if you're BSing me, you're going to have to stop and think about it. And is that true?
Yeah. AI can help you with your elevator pitch. Just upload your resume into Google or Gemini or ChatGPT. Hey, what would be a good elevator pitch for me that I could say inside of 30 seconds? And practice saying that over and over again. That's going to get you better results than acting like it's the first time you ever heard this question before, because then you're going to have a tendency to ramble, and your elevator pitch is going to go well beyond 30 seconds. You're going to be talking some of the most annoying things I encounter as a recruiter when I ask people that. Tell me about your background. What's your story? And people go on and on. I'm like, oh God, here we go. And I sympathize, because I used to be one of those people before I got into recruiting. I was terrible at interviewing. I was awful. I got turned down by about 9 staffing companies before one of them took a risk on me, or a chance on me. And so you're not born knowing how to spit off a good elevator pitch, it does take quite a bit of practice, but just remember less is more.
That's a good piece. I did the podcast last episode, and I did a mic check with one of the guys, and we want to make sure our mics worked, everything. And I said, go ahead and do your first 10 minutes of your presentation. I was so nervous, and it was umming so bad, and it was just unnatural, and it was just a mess. I told him about to take a deep breath, calm down, enunciate your words. Don't speed things up. You have a tendency in these podcasts to speed things up like it's some kind of training video. We're just talking, chill out. Then 3 days later, we did the live taping, and he was like 100 times better. He was just like fully relaxed. The subject matter came into crystallization. The stopped. The natural speech was there. And I think that's the same thing with that elevator speech, is to get the natural speech down to who you are. When we do business development, sometimes I do sales, right? Not only are you a cybersecurity engineer, but everybody in the company's got to sell. So you get on these conference calls and so forth. One of the things I noticed that the customers expect, almost the same way as a kind of recruiter would expect, and you tell me if I'm wrong or not, is a level of confidence, not of arrogance, but a level of confidence that you can confidently answer that question and do it in a professional manner. And don't tell me, oh, I've done it hundreds and hundreds of times. When they tell me they got all this experience at hundreds of times, but they just oversell it like that, I think they're hiding a weakness when they do that. But if you have a level of confidence, even if there's something you've never done before, that you're confident that you could figure it out. I've been on Citrix before. I've been in Microsoft. I know I can do that. To me, that's attractive because especially in the IT world, security world, you can have things that you never saw before. The last thing you need is a guy going, I don't know what I'm doing. Let's get someone else. You need this level of confidence that says I can take on new challenges and so forth. I don't know. I just feel that a confident person in those interviews and having a team mentality is really the key to do that elevator speech that gets those job description things that they're looking for. Can make sure your elevator speech matches those things. And like you said, which I thought was the greatest point of that, is once you've done the elevator speech, it matches the job description, at the end say, that's why I applied, because I feel that I'm the best suited for it. So what you're doing is you're leaving that idea in their mind, that recruiter's mind, that you're the best person for that role because you even thought about this role versus you. Is that right? It's just a planning, that's why I applied for this, is because I feel I'm most qualified for it. All right. Does that make sense?
It does. Yeah. Those are just some little tricks. But yeah, I was trying to think back. So what was that question? Because I was thinking my answer and I already forgot it. What was the core question there?
Of this one?
Yeah.
So I think it's that confidence level when you answer a question versus you could see where you don't want to come across arrogant.
Oh, yeah. Okay, I know where I was going to go with that.
Like
everyone's looking for a humble subject matter expert type persons. Yeah, if you hear, oh, I've done it 1,000 times, you come off as arrogant, maybe someone who doesn't play well with the team, someone who is my way or the highway, and this is how we do it, this is how we've always done it kind of person. And I think companies are very resistant to hire people like that. It does help if you memorize 3 or 4 stories of actual situations that happen in your career. And don't be vague when you're answering, especially these behavioral questions. What I would do in that situation is blah, blah, blah. What I typically do is this, that, and the other. If you can prepare, much like your elevator pitch, 3 or 4 stories of things that actually happen, those are going to be much more powerful. And even if it doesn't exactly relate to the direct question they gave you, maybe if you can just massage the question or massage that story a little bit to fit a little bit, you can still use it. And those are going to be much more powerful than anything else. And the stories, typically you would paint the picture of, I was back, it reminds me of my time at this particular job. And we were on a team of 7 and we were faced with this project. We were trying to get such and such working. We kept running into errors. And what I suggested was we try so, and we did that, but it ended up failing. And what we learned was that's not the right approach. So from that point forward, I learned that this is how you typically handle those situations. But those stories are better, and just try to come off as a very collaborative team player in these interviews, because the soft skills are going to dictate your success more than any technical skills. I think the soft skills are about 80% of your job success, and only 20% is going to rely on your technical ability with a certain tool or whatnot.
No, it makes sense. And I think one of the pieces when they put specific tools in there, it's backup exec or it's ServiceNow or whatever. A lot of times, I think that's data leakage. It gives threat actors an idea what the infrastructure looks like. So it's not a good security practice to put all that in those recruiter things. You're just pretty much telling them everything they run internally. I've even seen people put version numbers of the software in the job description. So all you got to do is Google Dork or do some OSINT searches, and you're able to see all this information. So you definitely got to be careful. Now, what are the top job boards everybody should be on? Obviously, LinkedIn is there. They got Indeed. They have stuff like that. But is there some area that you would say that you're going to cover your bases the most if you at least have these platforms that you're using? What would be your suggestions?
Yeah, there's thousands of different job boards out there. And the biggest players, I would go first to Indeed. I would go first to LinkedIn. Indeed's the second. And then you can do like ZipRecruiter. I'll just be careful about putting like my real cell phone number on my resume if you upload it to some of those platforms to be found. Maybe just spin up like a Google Voice number, a burner phone number, so you don't get blown up by foreign recruiters for the rest of your life and your core cell phone number. But yeah, number one is LinkedIn. And if you see a job on LinkedIn, sometimes the link will take you to the company's website, so you can apply on the company's website through their in-house integration with their own ATS. But if it wants you to apply through LinkedIn, I kind of shy away from that. I would rather go find that job on the company's actual career site, because then you're going to get that direct path through their parsing technology into their ATS without some type of integration that has to happen. Who knows what's going to happen to the formatting of your resume if you do that? That's what I would say. Apply directly on the company's website. You can find the jobs anywhere. Go any job board out there. It doesn't even matter. Find them all over the place, but don't apply there. Go find it on the company's website and apply directly.
That's a good point there. I was always wondering, one technique I would use, I would see the recruiter that posted on LinkedIn, and I would go to her profile or his profile and just go look at it and even follow them. And that way they go, hey, somebody just followed me. Let me see that. Oh, that happened to have the skill sets for this job I happen to be applying for. Hey, how are you doing? I don't know. Does that technique work? Because to me, that seems to make sense. I'm not going straight to this recruiter that published this job, but it's a way of passively getting in front of them and letting them know you may be interested. I don't know. Does that kind of stuff work? Do you recruiters see who's looking at your profile and see if that's a job you got for that? Or yeah,
Totally. Yeah. And now, if you're in talent acquisition at a company that's hiring a lot, those people are going to be bombarded. Like, it's wild. Everybody's applying and then trying to connect and sending little LinkedIn messages. Hey, I just applied for this job. But if you can prime the relationship first by looking at the content that they've posted, and if you can comment on their content and something thoughtful, not just, hey, this was great, thanks. Actually think of a thoughtful way to comment, because they're going to get an email, a notification when people comment on their posts, and everybody loves the likes and subscribes and the comments and all that. So you're going to really get noticed if you comment on their content first, then send the direct message or then send the connection request, because they're going to see your name again. You just commented on their post. They saw your name and your comment, and they've already probably visited your profile. Now, when you go to request connect, they might accept it now, right? Because you've engaged with their content. So I would say do that. And then also, instead of typing a message in the DMs, trying to get their attention, I try to coach people to use the LinkedIn mobile app, where you can actually send an audio or even a video message to that person. You can record up to a 1-minute audio message using the LinkedIn mobile app, and a 2-minute video. You can upload it there or record it live on the app.
So you're
Yeah, those are going to stand out. The sales community and the recruiting community uses that more than I think the job seeker community, but it is a way to stand out, and it's a way that you can send a little micro interview to that person. You start out, you don't immediately pitch.
Yeah.
Hey, I just applied for this job. Maybe you want to say, hey, I loved your content, saw that you posted about this, and so I wanted to connect. Thanks for accepting my request. Oh, and by the way, I saw you guys were hiring for such and such role. I did just submit my resume. I thought I was a good fit because I had X, Y, and Z, and I love your company's mission. But either way, I'm really thankful that you connected. I look forward to following your content. I hope you guys find a good match for the role. Either way, I'd love to interview, but good to connect.
That's a good way to position it. Absolutely.
Yeah, they get to hear your voice. If you send a video, it's even better because they get to basically you get to share your elevator pitch in this video.
So that would be the top things to do here is A, get your elevator pitch down. B, I know the resume's got to be clean because like when I go to upload the resume, when I was in the job market, I'm no longer in the job market. I'm having a great time over at Surefire Cyber. But when you're in the job market here, you got to upload it, and you'll notice how if the resume is in the wrong format or it's in Microsoft Word or and you go to ingest it, and then your dates and times and everything's all over the place. You have to have your resume in the right format to just go through the Indeed or some of these job boards. For instance, a lot of them have the same back-end recruiting module, same software company and so forth. But I applied for one at ExxonMobil, then you apply for another one. It's the same back-end. You can see you got to create an account all over again. But it just seems to be a little problematic in some of that regard.
Yeah, I hate those. Yeah, and companies like Workday are the worst. They make you upload your resume and then fill out this massive form, basically like rewriting your entire resume. And I think companies, unfortunately, we've gone through this period of time where every company was trying to make it super easy to apply, like one-click apply. Hey, just put your name and your email and upload your resume and we're good. But now I think we're going to go back in the other direction because the volume of applicants is getting so insane. And then there's also AI auto-apply tools that are applying to hundreds of jobs a week on your behalf. And that's just really bogging down the system. So I feel like companies are going to start to incorporate more forms. You're going to have to do more to apply to a role just to cut down on some of the volume because it's insane.
Makes sense. I also saw where you could do a lot of help on your LinkedIn profile. Some people I know they only have 200, 300 followers, but some SEO techniques I've learned, like for instance, taking your profile picture before you upload it. A lot of times it's picture1.jpg or whatever, but actually rename it to your name. I put Joshua _ Roy _ Nicholson _ CISO _ security and so forth. And so when they see that and they index your page, it has an understanding what that image is. And so if you Google search for my name and you click images, you would see my face 9 times out of 10 more than you would see. There's apparently a lot of Joshua Nicholson's get freaking arrested in the United States because I see them on the alerts. I do a Google alert and this guy got arrested for meth, that one. They're ruining the name. But you could see where a lot of that starts to matter from an SEO perspective. Then following in groups, making sure you post at least once a week on some article. Maybe it has nothing, you have no super insight to it other than this is an interesting article. But getting something out there, the thinking, and the recruiters are seeing you. But just being engaged from that perspective, I think, makes you more marketable as well. As how often do you all look at those recommendations? If I recommend somebody on LinkedIn and I said they were really good at this other company, is that a key piece that most recruiters key in on?
I do look at them. Yeah, they're powerful, especially if they're recent and they're from a recent supervisor. Those are gold. Unfortunately, a lot of companies won't typically use those as your references that you would have to share if they ask you for 2 professional references. You can't just go, oh, just look at my LinkedIn. They're right there. They're going to still want you to give them their name, title, phone number, email, and they may or may not call them. But yeah, and the way to get those references is give the references. Or the recommendations, right? People typically follow the law of reciprocity. So if you want somebody to recommend you on LinkedIn, just go ahead and write them a recommendation. And then you can just say, hey, man, I had a really good experience working with you at so-and-so. I wrote you a recommendation just so everybody could see. And if you want to write me one, that'd be cool too.
I think that's great. I think that's one thing you want to be able to, you definitely want to be able to do. I like to follow recruiters too. So that way when they post they have some job, I'm able to see that they have some job, and everybody goes out there and people hit job alert to all their friends. And so I do caution people when they go, hey, I want to get into cybersecurity, so I'm going to go do this big degree and master's program for it. I'm like, stop. By the time you got through all that, you would have missed the market. I think you need to go on and some of a different route. And so it's interesting hearing just people that want to do kind of these changes. Artificial intelligence is big, but everybody's like, how in the world would I do anything with any of those things? Are just moving quicker and faster than I would want. But what are you seeing are like the hottest jobs? If you have this skill set, it's pretty easy to land the job. What are your thoughts on some of those career fields?
Yeah, just in general, I would say to niche down. There's very few generalist jobs out there anymore. You got to specialize in a hot area, specifically like cloud security or pen testing, incident response, something to do with like data privacy. You want to become that go-to person in a very specific skill set to help you stand out. If it's just a generalist type thing, you're really going to have trouble standing out in the crowd. And you definitely want to showcase your skills, right? Like you were talking about posting on LinkedIn. And you got to remember there's over 1 billion users on LinkedIn, and less than 1% of LinkedIn users actually post any content. So if you can just post once a week, you're going to really stand out.
Post
less than one. Yeah, 1%.
Wow. I have so much
LinkedIn is
world,
begging for
more
content.
What's that? No, I was just saying, when I look at my LinkedIn wall, it seems like it's more than 1%. There's just so much out there. But what will you say?
Yeah, it's crazy. That's the stats. And from all the gurus and people that I know that are in these LinkedIn think tank communities, they're saying LinkedIn's begging for content, even video content. So you want to showcase your skill set. If you maybe have a YouTube channel, right, to show, hey, I'm going to learn this new tool today. Never seen it before, but let's explore it together. And just, I'm sure it would require you to cut it quite a bit, do some research and film something and do more research and film something else and tinker and then cut. All those things, people should be able to spend time with you, at least the digital version of yourself on LinkedIn and YouTube. And then you definitely want to be able to showcase some of your skills in a portfolio or in your GitHub, right? You need a GitHub. You can't just say you have skills. You have to prove you have skills. You need evidence that you've contributed to an open source project, or you've made a video where you built your own personal security lab, or just anything in your portfolio, like you've helped a bug bounty community or something of that nature and filmed it. And then you can take these long form versions of your content. If you got a 30-minute video on YouTube, maybe you can just throw that into Opus Clip and get a 1-minute reel for your other social media platforms. And then there's LinkedIn's making a big push with videos now. It shows up much like Reels. You can scroll through them and go through the rabbit hole just like TikTok now. Anything you can do to stand out is key in this market.
No, I agree. I like what you were saying before, because I'd done this, is tailoring my resume into a couple buckets. One, I would have a general resume that was more generalistic. It was broad. The job description was a little vague, so I didn't have much to go on. So I went with my standard resume. Then let's just take my background. I'm cybersecurity incident response security engineer. However, I do executive work. I've been a CISO. I can move on that in that area. So you can see those are totally different, two different worlds. I love the technical side. It's fun. Doing the risk management, not so much, but I can as well. What will happen is I just spit two different resumes. So when I was going after jobs that had incident response role and director level role for that, I had that resume, put those skills and certifications towards the top, quicker, faster, better, and then change my cover letter for that. And then for the jobs that were CISO related, going back into management and not just in the engineering role, You wanted to tailor it towards more business skills and more collaboration and working across organizations and budgets and so forth. Because I noticed that this is a role, if you're too technical, they actually try to exclude you. They think you're an engineer and you haven't developed into a full-blown executive. And so you're going to get in front of people and then look like crap. So the thinking is tailor 2 different resumes, 2 different personas, and then look at for these common terms. Instant response sometimes is called forensics, or you can see they use different terms in these job titles. And so that was my thinking, having 3 resumes that at least fit me, because there was 2 major dimensions I had. And then the third one being general. And then the cover letter, how important is the cover letter? Because to me, the cover letter for an important job, I'm not talking about the one you send out to everybody because you apply to 100 different times, but the ones that you wanted to differentiate. You knew somebody there. Like, I've used a cover letter before at one of these big companies that I knew people working there. So I said, hey, not only do I believe my skills match the requirements that you have, I know that this would be a good fit as I talk to blah, blah, blah. And this guy really filled me in on the culture and what it's like to work there. And I just solidified in my mind that I would be a great fit for this role that you have. And to me, you can put that in a cover letter. You can't put that in a resume. And that at least gives you some insight to who this guy is, the guy or girl is, and where would they fit. Is that right? What are your thoughts on cover letters?
I don't know any recruiters that read cover letters. Maybe if you're applying directly to the hiring manager or an executive at the company, they may actually give them a look. But for the recruiting community, I know that they're not read. They're just skipped over. So there's some debate on that. It depends on the person that is hiring. So it's your personal choice if you want to invest time in writing them. I would use the summary section of your resume as the cover letter. Most people will write a summary, and that's like the most static portion of their resume. They never change it. I would argue that should be like the part that you change the most for each job that you apply to. And I like the strategy that you use there where you've got a technical version of your resume and more business facing. So you've got 2 core resumes there. That's where you can start. But then for that particular job that you're applying to, look in the requirements section and figure out, okay, what's important to this company? And let me highlight the things that I have from there in my summary and even bold some of the words that they're using so that without scrolling, the moment the person on the other end opens the resume, boom, it's all right there. Those are some of the things that I suggest doing when I'm coaching people and writing resumes. The resume that I give people, I'm saying like, look, this is your base model here, but you're going to customize this for every role. And yeah, you're going to wind up with a lot of resume files. Just create a folder. This Joshua Nicholson's resume 2025 dash this particular company name. All right. And refer back to that, but just keep them all in a folder. You'll have a lot of versions, but it'll increase your chances.
That's good feedback. I do that, and I thought it was just what a cumbersome way I'm doing this. And it was because I was changing the verbiage and the writing, and I wanted to keep track. But I kept doing that exact same thing, and I would do version 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And then so I knew what number was my latest, and then I would put the actual company name towards the end of that. I always found it, too, and you tell me how this works, is that after I got interviewed by a recruiter, it seemed to always work well to just send a follow-up email 30 minutes later that just said, hey, thank you for your time today. I had a great conversation. I believe that I am a match for this position because of X, Y, Z. Summarize that and send them a thank you letter. What are your thoughts on that? Is that a good closer rather than just not saying anything and not following up?
No, highly recommend sending follow-up emails after every interview. And it's not like it's going to actually get you the job, but it solidifies in their mind how interested you are in the role. And they're going to be much more likely to push for you if they know you have a lot of enthusiasm for the job and they can feel that in your follow-up. Very few people do that. It's a lost art to do that follow-up, but I would do it every time. And I'll also try to do that as a recruiter too. If I have a candidate that interviews and I know I need to follow up with them and then follow up with the hiring manager and figure out, hey, was it a good fit? Was the feeling mutual? All this. If I can get the candidate to send me a quick thank you note. It doesn't have to be a book, just a couple sentences, right? It's just a gesture. It's not something that you have to
Says
write
you're
a novel.
engaged. You're bought into this. You're on the journey of this,
Right.
taking this job, and you can see yourself in that role. I think it's extremely powerful, and people don't consider that enough, especially if they had other people that were there, that they had the network engineer and the CISO and some other people. I go hit them up at LinkedIn afterwards. Great opportunity to connect to someone else. And LinkedIn really sucks when you go to add people. It doesn't allow you to put a lot of notes in there. So like when I get added to someone new I just met somewhere, I'll send them a message through LinkedIn really quick going, hey, it was great meeting you at the Isaac conference or whatever it is. Because then now I go back to the person, I hit messages, I can see where I learned them from, where I met them from. I'm just surprised LinkedIn doesn't have better functionality in that area where I can track that kind of stuff easier.
Right.
But what are your thoughts in that kind of area?
Yeah. I send connection requests all the time. People I'm trying to get their attention or headhunting or whatnot. I never put a message in that box. I like to leave a little bit of mystery there. But if you're at a conference or you just meet somebody, that's why you need the LinkedIn app on your phone, right? I don't have business cards anymore, and I'm probably not going to remember all the people that I met. But when you meet somebody, just go ahead and pull them up on your phone. Hey, let me connect with you on LinkedIn right now. Boom, press connect. All right, cool.
Yeah. I use the card too with my podcast with a QR code on the back.
Oh, yeah,
Really,
the QR
so
code.
they can get to the right one. They're not Googling. But, man, I want to tell you, Blake, I really enjoyed this podcast with you. We're coming out of time here right at that hour mark. But I think we covered a lot of good ground. I learned some really interesting things on how best to position yourself. So I think some of the key takeaways I heard from you is, A, work on that resume. Ensure it's clear, concise, and short. 15, 20 pages is not going to be read. I think some of the other things I heard from you is that you want to work on your LinkedIn. You want to make sure your accomplishments are there. You want to make sure you can fill it out, ask for some recommendations, give some recommendations, and then post somewhat frequently so you're out there on those boards. Add yourself to these groups, the job seekers, networking, whatever the hell it is group. Add yourself to it, contribute to other people's content, get yourself out there. I think another thing I heard from you is just practice that elevator speech over and over again. You can tune and have more than one elevator speech. Like I was talking about before, I have a technical background and I have a managerial background. And maybe you want to have two different elevator speeches for both of those, depending on, you don't want to waste, in my mind, I don't want to waste the recruiter's time with them trying to get answers to the question I know they need to get by wasting their time about talking about things that have nothing to do with the answers they need. So for instance, if they're trying to get through to figure out these 5 questions to see if you're qualified, I talk about a lot of other things. I want to make sure that recruiter gets their questions out of the way right away. And now I can move on to things that make you really think I'm for that role. I've already checked the box. Here's the extra stuff. Is that a way you think as well, or what are your thoughts?
Yeah, in addition to that, I wouldn't forget how important commenting is on LinkedIn. Now, and another thing we didn't talk too much about is like the networking stuff. You got to network like your career depends on it, because it does, right?
It means livelihood.
Go to the events, right? If you're in the cybersecurity community, attend the cyber events. I think you and I met at a conference called Kakalaki-Con.
Yeah.
And so here we are, right? So that turned into a relationship that we have. So don't just rely on your digital life, meet people in person where they go, where they hang out, but also remember that LinkedIn is a very powerful tool. And if you can't get someone to reply to you, maybe if you comment and engage with the stuff that they're putting out there, because it takes a lot of courage to post on LinkedIn. You're nervous. Oh man, people are going to judge me. So if you go ahead and put yourself in their shoes, man, they had to have some courage to even put this out there, because now they're open for people's judgment here on the internet. So if you can comment on their stuff, be their cheerleader, root them on, engage with a little bit, then they're immediately going to like you more and be more likely to connect your request, reply to your DM, and then maybe invite you in for that interview.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for joining, Blake. Now, where can we learn more about you? Do you have your own website? I know you're with Hyperdrive, so just follow you on your LinkedIn is the best way to keep tabs on you.
Yeah, LinkedIn's a good place to start. I run Hyperdrive Recruiting. I also have a resume writing business called HR Approved, and that was born out of Hyperdrive Recruiting, right? Hyperdrive Recruiting, HR Approved. So I put that stamp on every resume that I submit. This resume is HR Approved. So that became the name of the resume writing business. And then I've also got 2 podcasts. I've got the Imperial Security Bureau podcast, where we interview leaders in cybersecurity and engineering and AI. And then I also have the HR Approved podcast. We're interviewing people in recruiting, job hunting, career coaching, and we talk about HR technology, new technologies that are coming on the market, locked in AI and my credibility, some of these most recent guests that I had on. So yeah, you can find me all over the place, man. Probably too many places, but there you go.
All right, everybody, Blake Williams, appreciate y'all. Make sure you hit that subscribe button and share this out on all your social media platforms, and be safe. Have a good evening.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening to this episode of Cybersecurity America on the Voice America Business Channel. We hope you've learned some valuable information to help you be a better executive leader and navigate today's complex world of cybersecurity. Until next week, stay secure.